Happy Friday, folks. And that nasty little clip there was from Germany, where the black-clad enforcers of the government are cracking down on the farmers protesting lunatic policies. But in any case, I have bigger news today. A shocking thing happened on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, in France. And what they did was brought in a law, and I'm going to bring you through some of the details. It truly is shocking. I really mean that. So here's a tweet I put out yesterday. It got around 500,000 views so far. And yes, shockingly, France has managed to ram through a law which has €45,000 fine, roughly dollars, and up to 3 years in prison for countering or advising anyone in any way to not take certain medical treatments that are obviously suitable for treatment based on the current state of medical knowledge, right? You could be imprisoned now for this. Now, some people have said that this insane law did not pass, but they were incorrect, because after the first session where they were thrown out, later on they managed to shoehorn these laws in and got them passed. So absolutely crazy. So the current state of medical knowledge after the last few years and what we witnessed, well, I guess thalidomide at one point was certainly a suitable treatment for pain in pregnant women. And that guy who won the Nobel Prize in 1949 for doing the frontal lobotomy with an ice pick, yeah, he got a Nobel Prize for that in 1949. That was certainly the current state of medical knowledge at the time. And now you go to prison for even thinking about doing it. But here we are. This has just passed in France. And I got it from this article. I'm not sure who the guy is, but they're actually calling it the Article Pfizer. This legal article that's gone through. So trust the science, eh? Now, I think this is totally unworkable. But it's very interesting that they would even have the gall to actually pass a law this crazy. So it's just, I'm actually still astonished myself that this happened, and it's something obviously to be following and keeping an eye on in the coming weeks to see the reaction to it. Now, I actually got a reply to that tweet from someone who showed me something else, even more shocking, if possible. In 2016, because we know the globalists long before COVID, for decades since Rockefeller Foundation set a lot of these things in motion, they've been getting in all the legal infrastructure for forced medicalization and all this kind of crazy stuff. But in 2016, the West Australian Public Health Act, and I'm going to show you some detail, it's basically that they can decide, based on some kind of medical need, enforcement of requirement to undergo medical observation, medical examination, and medical treatment. So the stuff in here, again, is just completely nuts, enabling medical observations to restrain the person to do that, and to enable the relevant person to be restrained and vaccinated, to remove anything or everything, including underwear, if the person is wearing any such items, rip them off and stab the person, So absolute nut jobbery. And just to blow up the primary two clauses, if an authorized officer, that's an agent of the state, probably black-clad, gives a direction to a person under this section, medical examination or medical treatment, or to be vaccinated, an authorized officer or police officer may come in with a bunch of black-clad thugs and use reasonable force. They'll use any force, obviously, to ensure the direction is complied with, including to apprehend and detain the person to whom the direction applies, the relevant person, the innocent person, you should read there, and take the relevant person to a place where the person is required to undergo medical observation, medical examination, or medical treatment, or to be in accordance with the direction. So this is clearly utterly unhinged, but they got it through quietly in 2016. So everyone's got to be aware of this and start a major pushback. I'll just show now the full video of Germany there, and we'll have a few further words on what's going on. There we have it, the black-clad agents of the state. The states, which now sadly reporting to much higher levels, which I'll show you in a moment. and very reminiscent of cartoons like this. You know, we have lost our political leaders. They are all reporting to a higher authority now, and they could not care less about the people who voted them in or their own citizens. Just the way it is, folks. No conspiracy theories here. Just the way it is. So it needs to be countered at every turn. And I'm going to credit here Ian Davis, who did the slide I'm going to show you in a moment. And I don't agree with every single piece of it, but it's a great overview of how the world actually runs. So here it is, and pretty much up the top we have the banking organizations, Bank of International Settlements, central banks. They're private authorities, fully private institutions, but everyone thinks they're kind of governmental, right? So they have a lot of plans for managing the world. They're in the kind of key position. But pretty much up there with policy making are the WEF you're familiar with, the Council for Foreign Relations, Club of Rome, Chatham House, and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and foundations. And this goes on quite a bit. So all of these are intimately joined at the hip. And the UN is effectively part of this infrastructure, but it's been recorded here as policy distributors or kind of pseudo enforcers. United Nations, International Monetary Fund, all of these kind of pseudo charities or climate kind of councils. World Bank, of course, it was screaming for lockdowns, and it was saying that COVID would last until 2024, this COVID phase, and they were saying that in 2020. So they're up to their neck in it. WHO, I don't even need to talk about, philanthropists and, you know, a certain Billy Boy and many like him. And global corporations up to their neck in it, all members of WEF, etc., and countless NGOs. So if you include all this together, that's what's setting the agenda for the world, and Agenda 2030, not a conspiracy theory. This is just the corporate global governance of our world currently, but more people are becoming aware of it and pushing back. Then you have the policy enforcers, and these are our puppet politicians and civil service and public service and national health kind of organizations, police, military, etc. Probably some of them don't really like it, but they have no choice. And local governments are completely lost as well. They all report up the kind of pecking order. And then scientific authorities, SAGE, NervTag in the UK, and we got the CDC and all, they're all completely on board. So they enforce the policies and they support the policies with the science, right? And then we have policy propagandists kind of below that, not quite as connected in, but you've got all the government organizations kind of going around making sure that people are censored. Anti-hate campaigners are all on board. We saw that in COVID. Mainstream and legacy media are bought and paid for, and it's almost comical the extent to which these people will simply deploy and propagandized around any nonsense that comes from up top. And down the bottom you have, unfortunately, us, the public. But we are vastly more numerous, of course. And as awareness grows, and as we're seeing now, quite clearly, the WHO is getting very worried about its insane, pandemic treaty or accord and its World Health regulations. So we're getting a lot of pushback from the public and squeezing their politicians and useful idiots. And this will make a difference. In fact, this is the only thing that will ever make a difference. You can forget about trying to appeal directly to these nut jobs. Okay, so that gives you a good overview of how the world is run. And just remember the power of numbers, the power of what we can do together when aligned and joined. But there is a challenge. I will have to acknowledge that all of these guys are very smart and they are dividing and conquering. And again, it is almost comical the extent to which policies are rolled out specifically to divide and conquer the public and keep them at each other's throats. So we've seen a ton of that. I don't need to even go through examples. So in any case, that's the quick update on a Friday. And not very pleasant viewing, perhaps, but I think really important viewing and keep the awareness out there. So please do share and keep people aware of what's actually going on, because a lot of these laws and changes are of course done very quietly, and the legacy media are given the nod to not cover any of these things. So really important to get the message out. And as always, massive thanks to my Patreon and PayPal supporters, anyone who can support me to keep doing the work that I think is extremely important. And of course, if you can jump in, if you haven't already, really appreciate that. But no worries if things are tight. Certainly those evil nutters who I just went through are kind of orchestrating it so that people are tighter in money, orchestrating inflation through mouse click money and pumping out those bills, and generally making it harder for everyone. But if we don't push back, we pretty much lose it all. And that's the bottom line. So thanks so much, folks.